It's about sleeping better at night. If you are building a mobile app for healthcare, mental health, or anything involving patient data, you should probably have really good control over which kind of data you save in your analytics stack. Because if you're just using one of the standard SDKs, the ones many people use for e-commerce or gaming as an example, you might be walking into a regulatory minefield without even realizing it. Today I want to break down the no BAA, no IP rule and explain why I built Respectlytics specifically to solve this problem. Here's the reality. In 2026, the definition of protected health information, or PHI, has expanded. It's not just names and social security numbers anymore. If you link a user's behavior, like searching for diabetes symptoms, with their IP address, that combination can be considered as PHI, the protected health information. And here's the challenge with traditional analytics tools. Most standard analytics tools collect IP addresses by default. They use them for geolocation, fraud detection, or just because they can. If that vendor won't sign a business associate agreement, BAA, with you, and they are collecting IPs while your user is doing health-related things, you have a big problem to solve. You're sending potential PHI to a third party who isn't legally bound to protect it under the hipaa standards. The second trap is custom dimensions or user properties. We actually love these custom user properties as developers, you may know. But in healthcare, it is so easy to slip up. One boring day, a junior developer pushes the code that tracks the PHI into these custom user properties in your analytics stack, such as the diagnosis information, the doctor visit time, or any other protected health information. And boom! You just sent health data to your analytics provider. If that provider is an edtech company, well, good luck explaining that to an auditor in case you go through an audit. This is exactly why I built Respectlytics. I didn't want to just trust myself to not make mistakes. I wanted an architecture that prevents mistakes by design. And we call this Return of Avoidance, ROA. The best way to secure patient data is to never collect it in the first step. And here's the architecture. It is strictly limited to 5 fields only. And these are event name, timestamp, the platform, iOS or Android, country, and a session hash. That's it. If you try to send a custom property like patient ID or symptom name as an example, the API will literally reject it. It's going to throw a 400 error and we block it at the code level so you can't even accidentally leak PHI. And regarding the IP address issue, we process the IP in RAM just to look up the country like US or UK, and then we immediately discard the IP address itself. It is never written to a disk, it never enters our database, and the system doesn't or cannot even tell you more than from which country the event came from. This means you get your geographic data, but you don't store the toxic asset, which is in this case the IP address itself. Now let's be honest about the trade-off with this privacy paranoid architecture, because there's always a trade-off. If you use Respectlytics, you cannot track a user's journey over multiple sessions, such as over the period of 6 months or something. You can't tell if the person who opened the app today is the same person who opened it last week. If you need that kind of data, if you need LTV, the lifetime value, or long-term retention cohorts, you must probably use a different tool. You will need to get a BAA, implement strict consent forms, and manage that risk yourself. But if your app is a symptom tracker or a meditation timer or a medical reference guide, do you really need to track users for months and collect that much detailed information about them? Or do you just need to know things like, are people using the new feature? Or where are they dropping off in the sign-up flow? And Respectlytics gives you those funnels. It gives you conversion rates, it gives you the session intelligence, but it does it without ever storing a single byte of data that could identify a patient. It's about sleeping better at night. If you are in healthcare or education or finance even, check out the blog post link below. I wrote a deep dive on the no BAA problem. And if you want to try the SDK, it is open source. Inspect the code and verify for yourself that we aren't tracking what we say we aren't tracking. Thanks for watching and stay compliant.